Let me tell you about a digital war you've never heard before. How did an app used by 170 million Americans every day end up pitting the world's two most powerful nations against each other? And what if the real reason behind this war isn't data security, but something else entirely? January 19, 2025, Sunday night, millions of young Americans are glued to their phone screens, trying to open the TikTok app one last time. A day earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court had made a historic decision. TikTok, owned by ByteDance, would either be sold or completely banned. Nobody knew what would happen that night. Would those opening the app be met with a dark screen? Or would everything continue as normal? This wasn't just the story of a social media platform shutting down. This was the story of the 21st century's new battlefield. The algorithm that stretched from Beijing to Washington. September 2016. In China's capital Beijing, a tech company called ByteDance launched a new app. Its name was Dot. It offered something beyond just sharing short videos to its users. Its AI-powered algorithm learned what each user wanted within seconds and served them personalized content. Without you even realizing it, the algorithm knew you, how long you watched, which videos you paused on, which ones you rewatched. Every move was recorded. Developed in just 200 days. This app reached 100 million users within a year. 1 billion videos were being watched daily. But for ByteDance founder Zhang Yiming, this wasn't enough. His eyes were set far beyond China's borders. In 2017, the company launched TikTok for the international market. A year later, they bought Musical.ly for $1 billion. This move created the perfect opportunity for TikTok to enter the American market. On August 2, 2018, the two platforms merged. And right at that moment, a digital earthquake began. TikTok swept through American youth. By 2020, it had reached 100 million active users in the US. Celebrities like Jimmy Fallon and Tony Hawk started using the app. Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, and Justin Bieber followed. Suddenly, TikTok wasn't just an app, it was a cultural phenomenon. But in the backrooms of Washington, alarm bells had started ringing. The first declaration of war, Trump's decision. Summer 2020, Donald Trump signed an executive order in the Oval Office. TikTok was a national security threat. American users' data was falling into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party through ByteDance. This was unacceptable. The Trump administration gave ByteDance an ultimatum: either sell TikTok's American operations or face a complete ban. However, federal courts blocked this decision. Trump's order was suspended. But the seed had been planted. As the first act of this war closed, Zhang Yiming was quietly stepping back. In 2021, he resigned as ByteDance CEO. Liang Rubo took his place. Shou Zichu, a Singapore-born executive, was appointed to head TikTok. This move wasn't coincidental. ByteDance was trying to obscure its Chinese connections. But Washington wasn't buying it. Congress's red carpet. Chu's testimony. March 23, 2023. Shou Zichu came to Washington to testify before the U.S. Congress. The 40-year-old CEO was a Harvard graduate, had worked at Goldman Sachs, and was an intelligent, composed businessman. But what he faced that day wasn't an interrogation, it was an execution. For 5 hours, congressional members bombarded Chu with questions. Is TikTok transferring data to the Chinese government? Is the algorithm being manipulated by Beijing? Are you exposing American youth to Chinese propaganda? Chu tried to answer each question calmly. He said TikTok had invested $1.5 billion in data security. He emphasized that American users' data was stored in the US, with no access from China. He even alluded to Facebook's Cambridge Analytica scandal, implying that American social media giants weren't perfect either. But the congressional members weren't convinced, or didn't want to be. Republican Chairman John Molinar called TikTok digital fentanyl. Democrat Frank Pallone added it was a weapon in the pocket of the Chinese Communist Party. It was rare for the two parties to agree so much. But when it came to TikTok, political lines blurred. The tension visible on Chu's face during that hearing actually reflected a bigger truth. This was no longer a legal matter. This was a geopolitical war, under the shadow of the law. 270 days. April 24, 2024, President Joe Biden signed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. The law was clear and decisive. ByteDance had 270 days to sell TikTok. Otherwise, the app would be completely banned in the US. Apple and Google would have to remove TikTok from their stores. Internet service providers would cut off access to the app. A penalty of $5,000 per user was proposed. This meant billions of dollars in sanctions. The countdown had begun for TikTok. ByteDance and TikTok filed a petition with the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals on May 7, 2024. The claims were strong. The law violated the free speech rights of 170 million Americans. Congress was imposing a permanent ban targeting a single platform for the first time in history. However, on December 6, 2024, the court ruled in favor of the government. Senior Judge Douglas Ginsburg stated that the law was carefully crafted to deal with control by a foreign adversary. National security concerns outweighed the First Amendment. TikTok had to play its last card. The Supreme Court. The final stop. The Supreme Court's decision, January 10, 2025. Washington woke to a cold winter morning. Hundreds of young people gathered in front of the Supreme Court building. They held Save TikTok banners. Inside, 9 justices began their session to determine TikTok's fate. TikTok's attorney, Noel Francisco, argued that shutting down the platform would be the greatest intrusion on free speech. But opposing him, U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar made a striking comparison. If you walk into a store and see a warning that 1 in a million products is carcinogenic, that doesn't tell you which product to avoid. The harshest criticism among the justices came from Neil Gorsuch. Don't we normally assume that the best remedy for problematic speech is counterspeech? He asked, but the majority didn't agree with him. January 17, 2025, Friday, the Supreme Court unanimously announced its decision. The law was constitutional. TikTok's First Amendment rights had not been violated. Because this wasn't a matter of free speech, it was a matter of corporate control. The government has a compelling interest in addressing its data collection concerns, the court said. Preventing China's access to sensitive data of 170 million Americans is more important than free speech. Time was up for TikTok. On the night of January 19th, the app would shut down. On the brink of apocalypse, the final hours, January 18, 2025, Saturday, TikTok users were in panic. Millions tried to download and back up their videos. Some were migrating to alternative Chinese apps like RedNote. The irony was striking. Americans fleeing TikTok were taking refuge in another Chinese app. TikTok single quotes his importance for small businesses was undeniable. An entrepreneur named Callie Goodwin had gone live in front of the Supreme Court. She made 80% of her sales through TikTok. What would happen now? That night, TikTok made an announcement. The Biden administration and the Justice Department failed to provide adequate assurances to our service providers. Unfortunately, we will go dark on January 19th. But a day later, something unexpected happened. Trump's return, savior or game player. January 20th, 2025. Donald Trump was in Washington for his presidential inauguration. TikTok had shut down the day before, but Trump had plans. During his campaign, he had said, "I will save TikTok." Now it was time to show it. Trump signed an executive order. He was postponing the enforcement of the TikTok ban for 90 days. His statement was clear. "I will make a deal." But what deal? The names maneuvering behind the scenes were notable. Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Steve Newton, all were interested in buying TikTok. However, ByteDance sent a clear message: TikTok is not for sale. Now everyone was wondering, did Trump really want to save TikTok, or was he playing another game? Some analysts thought Trump wanted to use TikTok as a bargaining chip in the trade war with China. Others claimed Trump aimed to get a commission from TikTok by making deals with tech giants. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: TikTok's fate was now being determined in the Oval Office. Global echoes how the world views TikTok. The TikTok war wasn't just happening in America. Around the world, countries shared similar concerns. India became the first major country to ban TikTok in 2020. 200 million users were deleted from the platform overnight. Why? National security reasons. During border conflicts with China, the European Union, Canada, and New Zealand banned TikTok use in government institutions. But they didn't impose a complete ban. Because with over 1 billion users, TikTok was a global phenomenon. Banning it meant drawing the ire of millions of young people. In Turkey, TikTok usage rose rapidly. With 31 million users, it became the third country with the most TikTok users in the world. Indonesia led with 157 million, the US with 120 million, Brazil, Mexico, Vietnam, the Philippines. TikTok's influence was global. But the real issue was this: TikTok wasn't just an app. It's an AI algorithm learned users' interests, habits, and political views. But what if the Chinese government had access to this data? What if the algorithm was being used to manipulate young people's thoughts? These questions were echoing not just in America, but everywhere in the world. The real reason for war: money or security? Now let's get to the real question. Was the TikTok war really about national security? Critics thought differently. The ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, issued a harsh statement after the Supreme Court decision. This decision is a major blow to free speech. The government is shutting down a platform based on fear and speculation. Professor Christopher Sprigman from NYU Law School said the TikTok ban was a massive speech restriction. The court is ignoring that. TikTok's data collection methods aren't different from other platforms, he said. But what if the real reason is economic? TikTok was threatening the advertising revenues of American tech giants like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and Snap. In 2023, TikTok's advertising revenue reached £15.2 billion. It was growing every day. Mark Zuckerberg launched Instagram Reels to stop TikTok's rise. YouTube created Shorts. But TikTok's algorithm was stronger. Users spent an average of 90 minutes on TikTok. That was more than Facebook. Now some were asking, what if the TikTok ban was actually to protect American tech companies? What happened? What will happen? Right now, TikTok faces an uncertain future. Trump's 90-day postponement provided temporary relief. But what will happen when time runs out? There are three scenarios. 1. Sale. ByteDance sells TikTok's American operations. But this isn't easy. The Chinese government may not allow the sale of TikTok's algorithms. Without the algorithm, TikTok is just an empty shell. Point to deal. Trump makes a deal with China and saves TikTok. But what will he ask in return? A trade agreement or another bargain? 3. Ban. When the 90 days expire, TikTok is completely banned. 170 million American users lose the app. Small businesses suffer. Content creators lose their income source. But the consequences of this war go beyond. TikTok. New World Order. The technology Cold War. The TikTok war is actually part of a bigger story. A new Cold War has begun between America and China. But this time, the battlefield isn't nuclear weapons or naval fleets. The battlefield is the digital world. Chip wars have started. The US banned semiconductor chip exports to China. TSMC in Taiwan became a bargaining chip between the two countries. In the AI development race, both countries want to be ahead, and social media is the most important front of this war. Because social media isn't just entertainment, it means information, propaganda, perception management. Whoever controls young people's minds controls the future. The TikTok war showed us this in the 21st century. Power is measured not by tanks and missiles, but by algorithms and data. Final word. So what does this story teach us? Perhaps the most important lesson is this. No app, no platform is innocent. Every time you click, every time you share, you leave a data trail. That data is stored somewhere, analyzed, used. Whatever happens to TikTok, this war isn't ending. Tomorrow another app will come, another country, another company, another algorithm, and the same questions will be asked again. Who owns this data? Who's in control? And most importantly, whose interests is this data being used for? 170 million Americans are now waiting in uncertainty. Will TikTok open or not? Will it be sold or not? But nobody knew the real truth that day. Whoever wins this war, the loser will always be the citizen.